Right, so this one might be a bit weird. I've been watching a few Destiny challenge videos and thought, well, it can't be that hard.
It was.
I myself have only completed 2 legendary campaigns, and I've never done one on my own. So I thought I'd make it a challenge video, and that way, I have to do it. However, since I haven't actually done anything along these lines before, I wanted to try something that was still challenging, but not completely insane. I bounced it back and forth in my head, and finally, I had an idea. Destiny is a game about guns. So what if I got rid of the guns? And then played one of the toughest campaigns on the hardest difficulty. The weapons I would be using included the funny bow. I call it such as it has a very pointless trait that makes me laugh. The glaive axe is a backup super, and the most Titan of Titan swords that allows you to completely ignore all fall damage. I decided to use things like abilities in this since it's a first attempt. So I settled on Void and Sentinel Shield, as it's fairly medieval. With my gear ready and my knight's armor adorned, I set off to the arrival. As soon as I started this mission, I began to think maybe I'd made this a bit too easy for myself. The bow was making short work of the Cabal, and when that wasn't enough, my glaive was more than making up for it. I began thinking maybe I'd have to completely scrap this idea if I got through it too quickly. Which I truly did not.
Tank section.
Anyway, I tore through the Scions and installed a large battery into a cannon that has never been used in the game except to launch people. And for some reason, I shoot this Scion in the... I make my way into the facility, committing various acts of violence along the way, before hunkering down and standing in a circle. Step inside, if you dare. Here I demonstrate my large and squishy brain, proving that my choice of glaive was indeed correct. Dropping a safe little happy bubble of protection over the circle I have come to love. I leave and make my way towards another cannon to fire my pure Titan mass out of, and show the Cabal that the pen may be mightier than the sword, but the sword is still very pointy. I steal a joke and tighten my nuts, and then I'm off to my first boss fight. For a reason that I don't remember, I charge up at this checkpoint, and then proceed to do it at every checkpoint afterwards. I do a little exploding, then decide to throw hands with this heavy gunner. Since I killed his brother with a shield, I decided to kill this gunner with a sword, and once again the world is balanced. I ascend and give a quick salute before firing myself at a spaceship like a maniac. I charge up at the checkpoint. I completely underestimate the amount of enemies in this room, and am almost immediately overwhelmed. This was the first time so far I had felt fear, as I'd been breezing my way through this mission, but here... here was when I realized that the game had taken its oven mitts off. Beneath those mitts were the fists of Mike fucking Tyson. I'm sorry, Mike! I'll listen to you talk about pigeons, I promise! But before I continue with this encounter, I will first need to apologize. For reasons I will never fully understand. My biggest weakness in this game, my fucking kryptonite, the thing that will almost always kill me without fail, the only enemy I truly fear, is the Hive Wizards. I wish I could explain myself. Maybe because they're flying and it's too much for my squishy Titan brain to handle. Maybe it's because they fire a continuous set of blasts. Whatever the reason, they effectively kick my ass in this section, and I'm forced to reassess. Let me tell you this campaign is full of them, and they frustrate me to no end. I storm back in this time using my sword on both the knights and saving my super for the wizards. I cut them down, and I'm happy to put this nightmare of a section behind me. I go through to this next room and impale this thrall mid-animation, which felt beautiful, and teach Shrek a lesson for stepping into my swamp. I make joke because he ogre. I fight across the bridge with knightly style, and I'm ready to face my first Hive Guardian. Titan, much like myself. The anti-wub, if you would. Our battle will be glorious. So he goes down like a sack of spooky spuds, and I wait patiently for his ghost to bring him back for round 2. Ding ding ding! Let's go, you facial starfish looking fuck. He hits the mat once more, and to keep him there, I turn his little buddy into a stress ball. Shrek shows up once again, and I put him back in his place, that place being the fucking ground. Sit there and think about what you've done, Onion Man. I charge up and descend upon the Hive with a vengeance. They fucked the moon, a fairly useless piece of land we weren't using, so now I'll fuck their home and everyone they've ever loved and or made eye contact with.
It's the British way!
I square off against the Witch Queen's projection, and upon besting it, I finish the arrival as a medieval knight. The investigation starts with, you guessed it, a little bit of investigating. I'm greeted by another Titan brother, and, like a true sibling, I vaporize him and reduce his favorite toy to dust. I make my way into the catacombs of the Throne World and do a little stabbing, a little bit of jumping. I blow up some people peacefully praying, do a little more jumping, and shoot a suicide bomber at point-blank range. I finally escape the catacombs and go for a little drive. I'm greeted with a friendly little bombardment, so decide to return their friendship with the only way I know how. I begin opening the gate to escape, and end up in a firefight, except they have all the fire. I manage to kill a Hive Knight with just a bow and arrow and feel very proud of myself. I do a little murder, open the gate, and drive away from this neighborhood as fast as possible. I charge up at the checkpoint and rush headfirst into this encounter, cutting down the guards, blocking the way, only to be confronted with... oh no. I rush the wizard headfirst and... I'm a lot more cautious this time, using my glaive's mini ward of Dawn as protection as I take out the big boys. I save my super from the wizard and turn its ghost into paste. I hop up to see Finch and beat the investigation as a medieval knight. The ghost begins by throwing you right into the deep end. I murder a few Hive and am once again confronted by my worst enemy. I kill it with a finisher I can't see because of a camera angle and turn its ghost into an actual ghost. Checkpoint charge time. Now this room is hell. The Scorn and the Hive are in the middle of a turf war, which means you have to fight on two fronts. And then after that, two Hive Guardians spawn in. I accidentally gave them a shield with my glaive, and in a moment of panic get shot down. I re-enter the room and charge the first Hive Hunter, and a combination of stupidity and bad aim leads to my immediate death. I enter the room again, and with what I begin calling the sword and shield technique, on account of the sword and shield in use, First Hunter and his ghost are slain just before he could use his super ability. I use my own and strike down the second hunter. I then stumble around in the dark for a while and reach the next segment with the Scorn Walker. This fight was rough. Like, very rough. I'm basically facing down a tank with two pointy bits of metal, and a third bit of metal able to fire smaller pointy bits of metal. Thanks to trial and error, a shield or two, and also the power of a god, the Scorn Walker is finally destroyed. This next segment I remembered as being much harder, having to fight through the Scorn and destroy these crystals to advance. But to my surprise, I tear through it. I destroy the crystals and, like a true titan, dive into this abyss with little regard to the consequences of my actions. I try to make a friend and he punches me across the room. I retaliate by destroying his property and he runs away. I charge up at the checkpoint and get to work destroying more of his possessions. I activate my super and engage in a grudge match with this boss, whose name I've always read in a Russian accent. Go ahead, you do it. It'll make you smile. I kill more of his friends and destroy more of his valuables, and with sword in hand begin round 2. I drop his health to a third and once again kill his friends and destroy the shiniest thing in the room. Round 3! I drop the shield at my feet and let the light bin come to me. A quick back and forth and he taps out of life and I beat the ghosts as a medieval knight. This mission was just mean. You remember all the trouble I had with the previous tank section? Well, for this mission, Uncle Bunchy said, hey, let's fuck with them, and put 2 tanks back to back with an arena full of bastards. I unleash my super and charge the first tank head on. I'm beginning to notice a pattern. I drop my flag again and decide to start this part by taking out the 2 Colossus heavy guns. That way I only have to worry about smaller enemies when I face the tank. I use my super and after an arduous sparring match, I get the tank to a sliver of health. And then this happens. I charge the first Colossus and am overwhelmed by a fuck ton of fire, eventually reducing me to a stain on the floor. I drop my flag and charge the Colossus and get stepped on, causing my bones to cave in. Flag, charge the Colossus and then get... Flag, Colossus, super on the tank, finally destroy first tank. Plan now was to slowly make my way through the bastards until my super was charged up again. Then unleash it on tank number 2. This plan, actually, worked. I killed enough Cabal to build my super again, and began chipping away at the health of Tank the sequel. All was looking up, the end was in sight. But then, tiny little auto turret catches me by surprise, and I am once again greeted by the big sad. Flag, Colossus, unleash super on tank number 1. And whilst I'm mid-attack, my bones decide to take the day off. Flag, Colossus, tank number 1, build up super on tank number 2. This time, this time I get stuck under the tank, and physics decide that I must again be sent to the Shadow Realm. Flag, Colossus, destroy tank number 1, and it's bastard killing time. For reference of how long this part takes, this is sped up to 20 times its speed. I was dead inside of this part. I finally get my super and face my foe once more. The tank is destroyed, and a piece of me dies with it. I am now ready to begin the mission. I float into the pyramid ship and jump around for a little bit and kill a couple of Cabal. You can tell from my gameplay that the last area just absolutely took it out of me. My energy was low, and so was my spirit. Those tanks took my willpower and took the king of all shits upon it. I charge up and get ready for the second of 3 boss fights in this mission. This one went a whole lot smoother. This fight is very similar to Rutikis the Lightbeard from the previous mission. It's such a shit accent. You damage his health a third at a time, and then lower his shield by deactivating a sensor in the room. The plan I concocted for this fight was to use my sword's guard mechanic to protect me as I lowered his shield. I then used the patented wobble sword and shield technique to remove the second third of his health. The second third of his health. I know that's correct, but out loud it doesn't sound it. I clear out a few more of the Cabal and make my way to the sensor, raising my guard and lowering his shield once again. Super time! I beat the Imperial Deserter like he owed me money, and after his internal organs decided they'd had enough, he lives up to his name and imperially deserts life. I carve a path through the pyramid, granting the Cabal the darkness they crave on my way to the third and final boss. I charge up a checkpoint with the knowledge that this fight, though very similar to the last, this one will be a fucking grudge match.